think that when we talk about stress, that is one of the most important things is to check in with yourself. But it's not just with kids. As you've taught me, the only thing you can change is yourself. Whether it's a relationship with a spouse, a relationship with a coworker, a friend, all you can do is man in the mirror, Michael Jackson, right? Hi, welcome this week to the Naked Doctor Show. I'm Dr. Tammy.
I'm Lauren.
We have a great show for you today. The parenting show.
Get in my belly. Just kidding, don't eat your kids. Yes, parenting show today.
Yes, parenting. And we're going to tie it into hormones. And it's back to school time, so going to be ready to get the kiddos back. And I think that routine and transition, changing from, the kiddos being out of school to back to that routine, just that transition is a stressful time. And so, how do you navigate that, and how do you, make everything
make the best
smooth?
of it.
Yes.
It's chaotic no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
So, I want to make sure everything is in order internally with your hormones so that you can handle these situations best.
Absolutely. And it's funny, I was just telling you, I had somebody in my art class the other day say, can you give me some advice with my son? And I'm like, who am I to give advice? So I told her, I said, I never give advice, I just give my perspective, which is one of the beautiful things about my friendship with you, is you have, for being so young, I probably shouldn't even qualify that. It's like your insight and your perspective is so amazing. And there's like a 20-year span in our ages, and yet I feel like you're light years ahead in your perspective of things. So as a life coach, well, yeah, I guess so. But as a life coach, I think you have so much to offer. So just want to remind people that if you need that perspective, it's really awesome. But we're not coming as parenting experts today. We're just coming as parents and hormone experts and kind of tying that together. So good show for you today. If you have children or stepchildren or grandchildren or no children, then
deal with kids at all, which is probably everybody.
Or you have hormones, then this show's for you.
You have hormones, we got you covered.
We got you. All right, we'll be right back with the Naked Doctor. Hi, welcome back to the Naked Doctor Show. I'm Dr. Tammy.
I'm Lauren.
We have a great show. It is the parenting show.
Parenting and hormones.
And hormones. And so what does parenting have to do with hormones?
Everything.
Everything has everything to do with hormones. Had a lady the other day, I was talking with her, and she said, yeah, but this all sounds great, but can you make me nice?
Can you make me nice? That's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
Because if you're on edge, it's kind of like, like when you're PMSing or whatever. It's like your hormones are really off balance or whatever. So it's causing you, to PMS or have this irritability. It's like there's just a lot going on in your body that is, your body cycling through and trying to recover from and find balance in, which, affects everything you're doing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, and it's not just women. Guys have this too.
Yeah.
Guys have their time of the month also.
Absolutely. Guys cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't bleed,
it's a thing.
But,
yeah.
They still have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And testosterone declines with age, and, they get a little moodier as their testosterone declines, and everything's out of balance. Andropause.
Andropause.
Yeah, because it comes from the word androgen, which is testosterone.
Oh.
Yeah, learn something new.
Awesome.
It's interesting because I always like that that construct of thoughts become things, and those things can be, manifestations. So you think a thought and then it becomes a thing, right? Everything, this picture, somebody thought of that and now it's a picture, right? So then those things can be emotions. And so those emotions over time then become things again, which are hormonal chemical changes. Mm-hmm. And so we know that people who have gone through extreme trauma, that PTSD cycle that gets set up is, chemical changes in the brain over time that, we do cannabis certifications too, which I feel very passionate about because that is a great chemical alter of that stress response that's happened. And just like you have a hormone system, you have a cannabinoid system. So there's so much myth around things like cannabis, but this isn't the cannabis show. But some people probably think they need cannabis if they're dealing with kids and hormones. But that's just one way. Hormone balancing, of course, checking all your hormones and finding out where those issues are. The interesting thing is all the male-female hormones are sort of on, if you think of like a scale, like those old-fashioned scales, if the male-female hormones are imbalanced, cortisol is up here. And then same thing when these are, are decreased or deficient, then the cortisol.
So basically if your cortisol heavy, like stress heavy, then it's going to throw off all of the rest of your hormones and cause you to feel imbalanced, which is probably going to just wrap back around to make me feel even more stressed.
Yeah, right? It's a big loop. Mm-hmm. And that's interesting because if you even go back to hormones, we're talking about parenthood, right? I had infertility or fertility issues for like 13 years because when we decided we were going to start a family with my son's dad, it took 13 years to get there. Well, I was in school and residency, and it was like, wasn't happening, and so it's like the minute I finished residency and started my, it's still stressful being a doctor, but not as stressful as residency, as school and all that, like bam, I got pregnant immediately. Or you hear about these people who can't get pregnant and then they adopt and then bam, the resistance is gone, and so now they get pregnant. So that's all hormonal, chemical, cortisol response as well. So it's really important.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because when people adopting, because you do see that a lot. Like you'll see an adopted kid really close in age with with their biological kid. Yeah. And I didn't realize that was why, but that actually makes a lot of sense.
And, we'll talk about it in the next segment. We'll talk a little bit about basic needs and how pretty much the perspective that I gave the girl in art class the other day when we come back. But that's really based on children are very absorptive, emotional. They are learning from us. A lot of times they are in almost a hypnotic state, especially ages 1 through 7. So they are just absorbing everything like a sponge. So they're mirroring back our emotional, spiritual state to us. So if your child has behavior problems or they're stressed, it's probably because we're stressed first and they're just mirroring that back. So if your kid has behavioral problems, that's just a symptom of the stress that's going on in the environment. So the first thing you got to do is calm yourself, check in with yourself and say, where am I? Where am I in my self-care state? Am I hungry? Am I tired? Am I cold or hot?
That's the easiest place to start, is with ourselves, but it's because it's really if in the big picture of things, it's like you have more self-control. You should have more self-control than trying to control your child, because if you're trying to control your child who is reacting to something that is coming from you, that's going to cause you even more stress, and that higher stress is only going to elevate the stress or whatever's going on with your child. So it is this balance of and this cycle of this energy just flowing between the two of you, And your kid, granted, kids can be very, very naughty or whatever.
Yeah, manipulative a little bit. They're all learning that stuff from us, though.
Yeah, and it's just, figuring out a way to, understand the situation from an internal point of view, because, it starts with you before you can really handle anything else, you know?
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about transition and how to have a really smooth transition back into the school year or life as a parent when we come right back after this break. Hi, welcome back to The Naked Doctor. We are talking about parenting today. And, you know, I think that when we talk about stress, that is one of the most important things is to check in with yourself. But it's not just with kids. As you've taught me, the only thing you can change is yourself. Whether it's a relationship with a spouse, relationship with a coworker, a friend, all you can do is Man in the Mirror, Michael Jackson, right? The only thing you can change is you or how you feel about a situation.
That's what you have control over. So it's like if it's a situation where, I mean, it's your kid, obviously you can't get away from your kid, but it's adjusting yourself, you know, in order to deal with your kid. But in a friendship or a relationship, not necessarily that, you know, you always have to constantly change yourself to appease the situation or whatever, but it's recognizing like what can you do in that situation to find your freedom and your peace in these situations, and, you know, getting rid of things that aren't good for you. But that's all in the topic too.
One of the biggest things I've learned from you is boundaries. And we, especially as women, we want to please everybody, and our boundaries get really blurred. And people who know me may know that I have a 15-year-old, and he's Asperger's on the autistic spectrum. And I don't claim that at all because he's such a beautiful, special person. I really look at autism as a gift because it makes them very empathic, very almost psychic. So they're very sensory. But one of the things with him is that I didn't realize early on is that because of the sensory issues, too much light in a room, if he's cold, if there's too much activity. I mean, we couldn't take him to restaurants, and I thought he was just a badly behaved kid. And everybody's on the spectrum, right? So when you look at your kid behaving badly in a restaurant, are they hungry? Are they tired? Are they cold? Are they hot? Is it too much sensory stimulation, age appropriate? You know, is it just a bunch of noise? Or like, you know, football games that are extremely noisy, is that just too much input or overload? And so people who know me now with my relationship with my son have no idea what those first years were like when I didn't recognize his sensory issues. And I tried to push him to be the kid that he's not. You know, I saw this show one time, they had these football players eating lunch with these kids with autism in the lunchroom because they sat alone. I'm like, I realize now they sit alone because they want to sit alone, you know, and I'm not trying to cause any waves in the autism community, but I have these awarenesses of, you know, of children in general. And so even if we're all on the spectrum, everybody's got sensory issues. I don't even like to go into a noisy Walmart at Christmas time. I'm like frazzled by the time I get out of there.
I know you call me sometimes like, I'm in this big store and there's so many people in here. I'm like, it's gonna be okay. I'll stay on the phone with you until you can get out of there.
Oh yeah, I've been on the phone with you a few times through that.
But it's understanding. You know, it's figuring out your boundaries. Also, so you can understand also your child's boundaries, because in with a kid with autism, you know, they're gonna have a different boundaries and different things that, you know, like you said, stimulate them or activate, you know, or cause any sort of like discomfort than this kid over here. And that, whether autistic or not autistic, every kid is going to have different boundaries and different, you know, they're going to feel differently in a public setting or, you know, or by themselves or whatever. And it's just, you know, it's all part of figuring that out, but not trying to control the situation, but trying to understand the situation.
Awareness and understanding, absolutely.
Because if you try to, as back to school is coming around, and if you're trying to dictate and control, you're only going to cause stress for yourself, because it just doesn't work like that, you know, and it seems like it's the easy solution right then, and don't do that. Why? Because I said so, you know. It's like, understand why that you are making the decisions that you're making, and so that you can communicate them so that the person receiving them can understand them the same way that you need to understand them and their decisions, you know, because ultimately if we're just walking around telling everybody what to do, you know, we're all going to have expectations that aren't going to be met. And that's going to cause unhappiness and stress. And
yeah. And you told me the other day, unhappiness is an unmet expectation.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Truly, because it was, you know, I was reading an article about how, you know, it was just talking about how gratitude rewires your brain to truly be happy, you know. So when you're, you know, grateful for things and you're really, you know, consciously thinking of those things, it's something that you're, of course, it's positive energy within your body that you are then releasing. And so if you're exuding this positive energy, that's what's gonna flow back to you. The same with negative energy. Negative energy is strong, you know. So it's like if you're putting out this negative energy, you know, with your kids and everything, and your spouse, that's what you're gonna get back.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a reflection for sure.
So, like you said, your kids are gonna mirror you. Everything around you is gonna mirror you. You know,
always.
And so, just remember that, you know, that your approach to things is where it all starts, you know. And so when stuff seems like the world is against you, it's, you know, try to step back and recognize like what in you may be off balance, what hormones may be off balance, or, you know, what situation is going on that might make you feel off or not, you know, aligned with what you should be doing. And then, you know, you'll start to recognize, it's like you just have to shift. You start to shift little things in your perspective, and you'll start to notice that the things around you stop happening to you.
Right, yeah.
You know, the world,
everything changes.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I got, you know.
See, it really does start with you.
It does, everything. It does. It really, I mean, we're all a part of this universe, and you know, we all plant our seed on whatever level that means, you know. And so it's like when you walk around being happy and grateful and loving, you receive that back, you know. And when you walk around being hateful and attacking and controlling, karma will serve you, whatever you serve the universe.
Yeah. You know, one thing I've struggled with too, that I think everybody probably has, is parental guilt. So when you don't realize that you're carrying around, and we all have it, some, you know, whether you're working a lot and you're busy, and then you come home and your kid's like acting out because they're stressed because you're stressed, and then you're like, oh, just have that video game, because, you know, you're like, you feel bad, you don't really step into this proactive parenting role. Or like for me, I'm a divorced mom, so it was just like I have to be mom and dad. So I carry around a lot of, you know, guilt about, am I doing a good enough job? Am I good enough? And then, you know, parental guilt about, you know, am I taking care of my kid the way I'm supposed to? Or do I feed them the way I'm supposed to? And so it kind of plays into that good enough. And then your boundaries get moved back a little bit more, and they learn how to push those boundaries based on how you're feeling. So I think just an awareness of that has really changed. And also appreciation, because my boy's 15. And I realize how far he's come behaviorally, emotionally, and the chemicals in his brain. And I really want to do a part 2 show, because I really want to talk about the hormones of like oxytocin and cortisol and those, you know, those different changes that happen in different personalities. But, you know, I so appreciate him, even with these raging hormones, testosterone and everything kicking in at 15, he's not out getting in trouble, because we've always had really open communication. You know, we talk about as much as we can, you know, as much as kids will let you, but you know, he could be out there, you know, doing all sorts of bad things, but he's not, and we're really close, and, you know, so
and everybody's so
appreciation of who he is.
And everybody's got nobody's perfect, so it's like every situation you have something that you have to have some kind of understanding and, you know, connection on with your children, you know, like they're not just born perfect and to follow rules or whatever the case, and they do whatever you want.
It's almost better if they don't. They have their own sense of
and so that's part of not letting that part of your children stress you so much that you feel like you've just lost control, because sometimes you just need to lose that control, because it's not about that. You know?
It's not about you.
It's about...
I like pick your battles, too. If they want to color their hair blue or, you know, whatever. Pick your battles. What's really important.
That's part of knowing why you make decisions when it comes to... When you are in the power position or whatever, it's like, why do I say no to that? Or why do I say yes to that? You know what I mean? I say yes because of parental guilt. I say no because I don't want to, just for whatever reason, because it's easier to just be like, no, get away, or whatever the case, because sometimes it takes work to actually dig into something and try to understand, like,
be proactive.
Yeah. And so, with your, as far as like with your kids, and if you're feeling stressed or whatever, narrowing down what it is that's making you feel stressed. You feel like there's not enough, you're not getting enough help, or around the house, or they're not listening. It's you have to figure out specifically what those things are, and then find a way to actually execute a plan to. So it takes a little bit of work on our part, which is all a part of everything starts with us. If we can figure out a way to, what would make me happier? How would I be less stressed out?
And sometimes it's just set the expectation. Like I tell my son before we go into store, we're not buying anything.
Yeah.
Just clear. And I don't get any flack from that. If I'm going to get flack, it's going to be at that point. Yeah, and then you have to be consistent.
Or if it's, I do the dishes. I need you to do the dishes. And they don't do them, there's punishment with that, and if they do them, then, everyone's happier, you know?
Right.
So it's like, you can't feel bad about trying to make even though your kid's like, I was like, I can't stand that. It's just like, everything I say is like, the response is like, just like such a big deal. Like, I can't believe I have to do this, you know what I mean? Which just causes stress. It stresses me out,
Right. And I like the word consequences instead of punishment, because it just implies that if you don't do this, hey, there's consequences. Right. It's not like punishment, not using fear. And I know you know that, but I just like that. Just, because a lot of people are like, well, just beat the kid. That's your punishment. But it's more proactive from, if you don't do this, then this is the consequence of that. Right. And so, it's the boundaries.
That's accountability. Right.
Accountability.
Exactly.
Which is what we all want.
Yeah. But, if you're, whatever term you use, it's not, you're going to get beat with a belt or whatever, switch or stick that you pick out in the yard or anything like that. It's just, having very clear consequences or punishment, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
For not
boundaries and accountability.
And it's ultimately what it is boundaries and accountability. And that's life in general.
Absolutely. But, and if you don't do that, you're setting them up for a very difficult life, because there's always going to be accountability and boundaries and consequences.
Definitely.
Yeah. So we talked about this. I just want to make sure we get this in. This is the Maslows Hierarchy of Needs. And I find this fascinating. You can go to Google and look at this, and she'll put up a little visual as well. But the bottom is just self-care. It's just food, water, shelter, warmth, temperature control. And then security is safety, employment, assets, things like that, what makes you feel safe. So you have to have the core self-care issues. Then you need security all the way to just inner fulfillment is all the way at the top. But there's family, friendship, belonging that comes after you have basic safety met. And then self-worth, accomplishment, those kinds of things. So all the way up to inner fulfillment. But you have to make sure that you're taking care of each one of these levels to the tip of the iceberg to really get to where you want to be. And I think that really helps if you're just aware, how am I showing up to the world? Do I feel safe? Have I, established? And at the end of the day, it's all about love and relationship to me. And that's what I tell the girl in the art classes. At the end of the day, are you showing up with love and kindness? Because that's really how you can parent from the best place. And I don't even like the word love, because it's so infiltrated with, I'm punishing, I'm beating you because I love you. That's not love, but boundaries and accountability and consequences are love. So you can do that with kindness. And a lot of times I think parents punish out of anger, not out of discipline. Actually means to teach, not out of teaching. So I think that you'll create a much better environment if you don't try to use fear.
Whenever you're actually, something in us craves that accountability, as we do, there's a safety, there's a security aspect in
Absolutely.
That. But when you're, when you're punishing out of anger or, out of frustration or whatever, and it's not with an understanding from the person who's receiving that, then they're going to start either being rebellious or retract and live in fear.
Yeah, and then you're just going to get another cycle of things you don't want.
Right. And so, it's really as simple as this is. It's like when you say something, whatever that is, you follow through with what that is. If you say, if you do this, then this will happen.
Or they just learn how to push your boundaries, and they know it's going to take 2 or 3 times, and they can push you through and get what they want. All you're doing is teaching them. Yeah. But it's the same with adult relationships, too. People only treat you the way you let them. Mm-hmm. So you got to have those boundaries.
And I know we talked about hormones and stuff like that. Sometimes it's harder to, once that cycle gets off, it's harder to find your balance and your clarity. When your hormones are off, it's harder to.
It's a cycle, yeah.
It is.
So sometimes you have to show up at our office and get tested and get help. And
so if you feel like you're crazy, then and you're doing everything, or it's a good place to start. Or a lot of times people have tried everything else, and then it's like, okay, I feel crazy. I've tried everything. I don't have any other solution.
I need help.
And so we're like a last resort, which
we should be the first, but that's just
either way, right? It's like if you start there, you have a good understanding of where to go, what direction to go in. And so on this thing, you're talking about because it starts with basically to get to the top, you have to fill the other. And if you're here, or you have confidence and self-esteem, but you don't have, you don't have like real love or anything. You're kind of living empty. There's something that, you'll seek from maybe getting in trouble or whatever the case.
And some people get negative reinforcement, and they just want attention. They just crave attention. Mm-hmm. And I think with children, sometimes when they're acting out, those behavioral issues are because they need your attention. Mm-hmm. They're trying to get something from you, and sometimes
they don't know
negative is the only way.
They just know they need something.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just,
Well, let's do a part 2 parenting show, because there's so much we could talk about. And I know we probably need to wrap it up this week. We'll be right back in just a minute. All right, great show today. So much to talk about. We'll do a part 2 and continue this. I know, we could just talk forever. Check us out on our Facebook page, The Naked Doctor. We're at, if you want to come get your hormones checked or work with a life coach.
Coaching.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is a good topic, really, especially. I feel like a lot of people struggle.
Absolutely. It sets the stage for every relationship. It's everything in your life. It does.
And there's no one way or no one right answer for everybody's situation. And so perspective and understanding of where you are and how to different ways to handle things is huge. That helps lead to you feeling better and happier and your hormones being balanced. So it all works together.
It all works together
in a great way. So you can schedule online at healingartcenters.com, or you can go to our Facebook or Instagram. We have The Naked Doctor Show, Healing Art Centers. Send us questions or
check us out. And check out CarbMelt.com, our new weight loss series. Good stuff too. Mm-hmm. All right, thanks for being with us this week. Blessings for you and your relationships, especially with those little babies and loved ones. And we'll see you back here next week on The Naked Doctor.
Thanks.